Welcome to Inside the Investigation. This week we have digital reporter Abigail Jones discussing her investigation into South by Southwest. Abby, I think this is the first time that you've been in here with us, right?
Yeah, this is my first time appearing on KXAN Live or doing really any on-camera experience like this. I'm excited to be here.
Well, we're excited to have you. We're excited to be a part of your first on-air experience. But your report, it looked into the inner workings of how South by Southwest works with musicians. First, though, explain to us how they recruit and hire for this event.
Yeah, so like any job, there's an application process. The only difference is that musicians have to pay to apply for South by Southwest, where they're then chosen for a showcase. And there's several different ones, and for each one, the process can be a little bit different. For example, Rolling Stone and Billboard, they have their own showcases that have become popular in the last few years. Rolling Stone has the Future of Music showcase. I talked to Rolling Stone's publisher, Brian Shaka. He said that some of the performers are chosen through the application process and some are chosen through Rolling Stone's talent recruiters, where they'll go and look for people that they want specifically on that lineup. And that's important because depending on the showcase, the pay can vary too. So Rolling Stone and Billboard, spokespeople from both of those brands told me that they set their own pay rates that are separate from South by Southwest pay rate that they pay for a standard showcasing artist. And then the city of Austin also pays its own standard rate, which was set back in 2023. So if a musician is playing at a city-sponsored South by Southwest event, they will get that city pay rate.
I see, I see. Well, I mean, South by Southwest, as a musician, I'd have to imagine it must feel like a really cool opportunity. But, in this economy, we always have to ask how much money do they offer for these gigs?
Yeah, so musicians can choose between the badge, which South by Southwest itself values at $995. If they don't choose the badge, they can choose monetary compensation. And this past year for solo and duo acts, it was $175.
So let's just stop for a second. For a solo and duo act, it's $175 per event.
No, it's a flat rate. It doesn't matter how many events you perform. It's just $175. Doesn't matter if you're on stage for 2 minutes or 70 minutes. It's just $175. And then for bands of 3 or more people, it's $400.
For bands
Yeah.
of 4 or more?
3 or more.
3 or more. Mm-hmm. Okay, so a band of 3 could be splitting $400.
Yeah, exactly.
Flat rate, not per event.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is not necessarily enough money to pay your rent for the month or anything. The musicians are, I'm guessing, working other gigs or even jobs during this time?
Yeah, they kind of have to. We went out with the Austin Federation of Musicians, which is a local musicians union that's part of a greater national union, the American Federation of Musicians. And we talked to the AFM president, Aaron Lack, as he was handing out flyers and leafletting, spreading information about the union and kind of contesting what he called unfair working conditions and low pay. He said that the pay at South by isn't only low, but it's not even industry standard.
Are you a musician? Anyone?
We're out here leafleting at South by Southwest here to let musicians know that they have a union and kind of to let them know that the conditions of the festival are not the industry standard at all here.
We're just passing out flyers, information about South by and how it's actually harmful to working musicians and what to do about that.
And the pay is just still really outrageously low. Even after a few increases of the last few years, they've really only been concessionary. And they're still not paid a living wage or even a human wage.
South by depends on musicians.
So we're out here letting people know what they can do about it, which is join their union.
I also talked to Curtis McMurtry and Diana Burgess. They're a musical duo in Austin, and they've been doing South by Southwest for over a decade. They're also part of the AFM. They are native Austinites, and this year they played 6 shows in 6 days at
Oh,
South
wow.
by. And they had to take gigs that weren't official South by showcases so that they could get paid, because for them, they chose the badges so that they could offer that incentive to other bandmates that played with them for their one official showcase. Curtis said that it's more worth it for some of those bandmates to be able to take the badge and a little bit of pay that Curtis will go out of pocket to pay each of those band members for, because he says that, you know, he believes everyone should get paid for their work and their performances.
But now, given the choice, I've found that it's easier for me to get other musicians to play with us for the showcase if I take the wristband option, and then I go out of pocket to then pay those musicians as well. So I lose overall, but if I just say, hey, can I give you this little bit of money and nothing else, then it's harder to get other musicians involved.
That's interesting. So he's paying his bandmates himself just to get them to participate in the gig. Well, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to talk more about how musicians are trying to push back and raise the pay for South by musicians. Welcome back to Inside the Investigation. We've been talking to digital reporter Abigail Jones about her latest investigation into South by Southwest and their pay structure for musicians. I want to ask, what can be done or is already being done to rectify this unhappiness over the pay that South by is offering?
Yeah, so there's been a little bit of movement over the last couple years. A few years ago in 2023, there were several headlines, big conversations that gained a lot of attention about musician pay and how low it is at South by Southwest, and that's when the Fair Pay at South by campaign started.
I see. Okay, so who's behind that effort?
The local Austin Federation of Musicians, as well as a national union, UMA, or United Musicians and Allied Workers. They're the ones that started that Fair Pay campaign.
And is this movement just about raising the pay? Are there other issues that they're also concerned about that's in the mix?
Yeah, so first of all, I want to note that South by Southwest has implemented a couple of pay increases over the last couple years. In 2023, after that Fair Pay campaign launched, South by Southwest announced that it would increase pay for bands from $250 to $350 for the next year's festival. And then in 2024, it again announced that bands' pay rates would go from $350 to $400. And for the solo and duo acts, that first pay increase was from $100 to $150, and then that second one was from $150 to $175. But the issue boils down to more than just a pay increase. This event impacts the industry for the rest of the year. A lot of musicians I spoke with said that it kind of sets a standard for how much they're paid for other events throughout the year because South by Southwest is such a legacy event. And there's not really an open line of communication between South by Southwest leadership and musicians either, other than the application process. And the unions are wanting to get to a place where they are communicating with South by leadership so that they can negotiate their pay and work structure through South by.
So that's interesting. So the musicians are saying the way South by treats us this one time of year, the way they set the pay, other venues are paying attention to that and paying similarly. Well, what does South by, the leaders at South by Southwest, say about this?
Yeah, so at the beginning of April, just a couple weeks after South by Southwest ended, I went up to South by headquarters and I sat down with the then president, Hugh Forrest, and I wanted to ask him about the increases in pay over the last couple years and bring up those concerns from musicians and musicians unions and ask what more is being done. And I asked him why those unions feel like South by isn't cooperating with them. He said that negotiating with the unions isn't necessarily off the table, but it's not within their business model right now. However, he also believes that part of the compensation is exposure, and part of the payoff in his mind is record labels, industry executives, contacts being at South by Southwest showcases that may see these bands that are up and coming, and then in turn allow those bands more opportunities in the future after South by.
I think that fundamentally, our mission statement as South by Southwest helps creative people achieve their goals. We want to, long term, be able to get more compensation for these artists that are the lifeblood of South by Southwest. We maybe can't get there as quickly as they would like us to get there, but we will get there eventually. Those conversations have certainly helped us to rethink a lot of the things we do with the Music Fest as well as the Film Fest, and we've acted accordingly.
And that's an interesting point that he's raising. There's not many places that you can play where there'll be music executives walking around looking for talent. But have you met, in your reporting and in your time living in Austin, have you met or heard of musicians who felt that the exposure was worth it?
So the shorter answer is no, but Curtis and Diana, who we heard from earlier, said that they can understand the calculation at times because there are so many more people and potential fans and stuff that are out. So it may be, you get a little bit more merch sales, you get new fans, and there's a certain prestige to playing South by Southwest and being one of those official artists for the festival. And you can leverage that to get other events in the future, other gigs. But that hasn't necessarily been tangible for them, they told me. Another person I talked to is Stephanie Bergara. She's the lead singer of a Selena cover band, Bitty Bitty Bonda.
I love that.
She is also a lifelong Austinite. She's a huge fan of South by Southwest. She's been attending it for 17, 18 years. She said the festival is as old as she is. So she's watched it kind of grow and come to fruition. And she said that she's had dreams come true at South by almost every year, but still the offers that she's received to play at the festival haven't been worth it for her.
So yeah, some of these offers that have come in, they're like, do you want to play XYZ corporate activation? It's on Rainy Street. There's no money, but we'll give you food and drinks all day. And I'm like, I have to pay these guys. I have to pay for parking. I have to source the sound system, which in Austin right now, there are a few things harder than securing a sound system in Austin right now. So unless you own it, and then that was an additional investment. So for the most part, it just kind of has not seemed like it was worth it for me to do some of these. And that was like being as vague as I possibly can. Like, I don't want to call anybody out because I don't want to get in trouble with whoever later.
And remember how I said the city of Austin, Billboard, Rolling Stone, etc., they set their own rates for those showcases. Well, Bergara used to work for the city for about 10 years. She helped establish that standard pay rate for the city of Austin and musicians who play city events, which is higher than South by Southwest pay rate.
Interesting. Okay, out of curiosity, what is their rate?
So it varies a little bit based on how many people are in the band. It's $200 per musician per hour for groups of up to 6 people, and then $150 per musician for groups between 7 and 10 people, and then it's a total of $1,500 for groups of 10 or more.
Interesting. So if the city, which isn't a for-profit business, can pay these musicians more, what is holding South by Southwest back from significantly raising their rates?
So we never got a clear answer on that, but I will say that South by Southwest musicians are not treated as employees of South by. They are treated as contractors or freelancers, if you will. So South by Southwest doesn't necessarily have to uphold or meet a certain hourly wage. They can kind of just set a flat rate and musicians can take it or leave it. And you heard Hugh Forrest say earlier that they're working on bringing that up over time, but we know now that he no longer works with South by Southwest. That happened after a leadership change up just a few weeks ago, about a month after South by Southwest ended. There was a lot of changeover in leaders. The person who's taking over as the main director of South by, she comes from Penske Media Corporation, which is South by's now parent company. They stepped in a few years ago after COVID to help provide a financial lifeline for the festival, and now they're the main owner and operator. And once we heard about that leadership change, I reached back out to share what Hugh Forrest said about trying to raise pay rates. And I asked if the new leadership is going to carry that over as a priority, and I still haven't heard back yet.
So there's a question of, with this new leadership, will there come significant change? Will it be more of the same? Interesting. And I really am looking forward to hearing your update on this. Hopefully we'll hear something soon from South by Southwest. But for those who are listening, you can go to KXAN.com/sold out and read Abigail's incredible report right now. Very thorough reporting. This is one that I really enjoyed reading. We appreciate you all listening. Don't forget to join us next Friday at 10:30 for another Inside the Investigation. And new this week, or not new this week, we've been doing this for quite some time. You can listen to KXAN's investigative podcast highlighting some of our award-winning team's latest reports exposing corruption, safety concerns, and system failures across Texas. The podcast will feature audio versions of our weekly Inside the Investigation, and you can find that wherever you get podcasts. See you next time.